Jason, did you get that residential traffic management flyer that I sent to you?
That's the two-sided one, right?
Yeah, the one with it's like orange and blue.
Yes, I have it, and I had already uploaded it to the website because you had sent it to me previously, so I was like, it makes sense.
All right, awesome, good. I just wanted to check that you had that.
Cool.
Hey, John.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good, good.
All right, getting it all figured out there?
We're getting there, I think.
Good.
Since you're online, well, we're already streaming. But now that Jim Honeycutt's retiring, who's replacing him?
You know, I don't know. I have not had the chance to talk to Ron yet to see who's going to be that replacement.
All right. We've been asked to look at Graham Park Drive near Graham Park Elementary School there. It's 4 lanes. Do you guys have a stacking issue at that school with the school buses?
Not that construction's heard of, but I can ask facilities.
If you could, when does Jim leave? He left 1st of July, right?
I would assume the end of July.
All right, I'll shoot an email to Jim, and then, but anyway, we're going to be looking at some possible improvements down there at Grand Park Elementary School. So it might be a good opportunity to whoever's replacing him to start that conversation.
Okay, Richard, I'll talk to Rodney as well.
Great, thanks.
And I see that Father Bahista has joined us.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, Supervisor Boddye.
We're streaming live, just so everyone knows. We will get started shortly. You are on YouTube right now.
This may be my first time on YouTube.
Well, John, after this, we'll all be YouTube famous, so the new experience for you. All right. If everyone is ready, it is 6:31. Is everyone ready for us to get started?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Just check one thing. All right, so yeah, we're on here. We have about 15 attendees, including a couple of folks on the phone. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. So good evening, everyone. This is Occoquan District Supervisor Kenny Boddye. This is our Valleywood Town Hall. For folks that are just joining us that may not know sort of what's going on, Valleywood Drive in the Occoquan District is a sort of a major sort of artery that comes off of the Old Bridge Road corridor. There's quite a lot of folks that live off of Valleywood Drive, and unfortunately, in past years, we've had some traffic issues, whether it's folks speeding, what have you. And over the course of the last few years, you know, the community has reached out in various ways to for us to look at different methods that we could do some traffic calming. I am joined tonight for this conversation, this town hall, by Richard Weinman from our transportation department here in Prince William County, John Mills, who is the supervisor of construction at Prince William County Schools, Officer Richmond O'Howe with the Prince William Police Department, and Father Bahista, St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Catholic Church. To ask questions, because we are here to hear from you after our panelists all go through their presentations. If you'd like to ask questions and you're on the WebEx, you can use the chat feature off to the right. We will be breaking 4 questions at the end of the presentations. You can just type your questions in there. Be sure to have the appropriate speaker address them. Same thing with folks who are watching it on YouTube. I'm not sure how many YouTube participants we have tonight, but if you're joining the chat through YouTube, please just go into the question and answer chat room there, and we will be on your questions. This session will be recorded and it'll be available immediately on YouTube after the conclusion of our town hall. It'll also be posted on our website, which is occoquandistrict.net. It'll also be posted on all of our social media platforms, which is Occoquan District Supervisor Kenny Boddye. So just a few housekeeping items before we move forward. I would be remiss if I didn't remind everyone watching tonight or afterward that we are currently as a county going through our strategic plan update. So every 4 or 5 years, the county goes through an update and review of our strategic plan, which highlights the goals the community has set for us for the next 5 years, whether that's a robust economy, well-being, mobility, what have you. This is the very first step, is a survey, community survey that will be given out to the public, and you can go and fill out that survey right now and see more about the strategic plan at occoq.org. at /strategic plan. So that's occoq.org/strategic plan. The last thing I'll mention before we dive into this is upcoming events. So I know that some folks who are on the line probably have school-age children, or they might be a teacher, or there's someone who's just very interested in the school system. Obviously, our conversation tonight isn't centered around the school division specifically, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that on July 15th, next week on Wednesday, the school board will be voting on one of 3 reopening plans that they are working through. On July 30th, on a Thursday at the end of the month, our office will be having a racial healing and justice reform virtual town hall. And you can register for that town hall on our website, which is occoquandistrict.net. We will also be putting up social media links to that event shortly. Last but not least, I mentioned the strategic plan before, but we will also be holding listening sessions for our district virtual ones on Thursday, August 6th, starting at 6:30 p.m., Wednesday, August 19th at 6:30 p.m., and Saturday, August 29th at 9:30 a.m. And this is an opportunity for us, for our strategic plan committee, and for everyone to sort of hear each other's thoughts on where we should be going as a community. Without further ado, I will hand it off to Mr. Wyman over at our transportation department, and we'll get started.
Great, thank you, Supervisor Boddye. Thank you, everyone out there. So I'm going to dive straight into a presentation that I've prepared just with a few slides just to help. I see there's a lot of dial-in people, so I will try to describe what we're showing. It's not very much detail. I see a lot of people who I've already spoken to in the community. It's good to see you all. As promised, last year we were going to have a town hall, and because of changing supervisors and this COVID-19 situation, this unfortunately is the best we can do at this time. Currently on the slide, you can see my contact information. Again, I'm Richard Wyman. I'm a traffic safety engineer here in the Prince William County Department of Transportation. And my email is rwyman@pwcgov.org, and my telephone number is 703-792-8002. Is that slide showing, guys?
It looks like it's going right now. It's starting to load.
All right, there we go. All right, because I was going on for a little there and then realized it wasn't actually showing. Is it up now? All right, great. So there's my contact information, and so please feel free to reach out to me if you have any transportation related issues. And I've also put up Jason's Schreiner's information. He's with Supervisor Boddye there in the Occoquan district office. If you have any other issues, you can reach out to him on those contact information. A little bit of background. So back in May of 2018, Prince William County Department of Transportation conducted a speed study on Valleywood Drive at the request of residents on Valleywood Drive. The study was done near 12841 Valleywood Drive, and it recorded an average speed of 30 miles per hour and 1,056 vehicles per day. This meant that it qualified for traffic calming measures within the residential traffic management program that we have here in Prince William County. So in July 2018, a speed table was proposed, and a additional $200 fines for speeding was also proposed, and this was reviewed and approved by VDOT. A petition was then sent out to the community and led by one of the members of the community to get the community support that is required to proceed with these measures. There were 2 petitions. One was for the additional $200 fines for speeding, and one was for the speed table proposal. We received the petition back from that resident, who gratefully went out and collected the signatures in April of 2019. At the same time, we also received some opposition to the speed table, which meant at that time we could not proceed with the speed table process and had to come back, and was decided to revisit it, hence this town hall. However, we continued with the additional $200 fines for speeding process, and that was approved by the board in August of 2019. And those signs were, after several delays and missteps by myself and VDOT, those signs were finally installed in May of 2020. And hence we come to today, where we have a new supervisor and the COVID situation, and we're doing this virtual town hall. So let's see this. What I'm showing now is the initial speed table that was proposed in 2018 and reviewed by VDOT. It was originally proposed to be around 12844 Valleywood Drive. Most of the community supported this. However, there were a lot of concerns by the immediate residents that the location was not ideal. We then reconsidered that in September of 2019 to relocate that. However, unfortunately, what this means is that we have to go through the whole process again because we have a new location to do a new petition and regain community support because the proposal changed. This will also mean that we will need to do a follow-up speed study, which VDOT, which Prince William County Department of Transportation already has scheduled, and as soon as the COVID situation calms down, we will be looking at doing a follow-up study to verify that the speed study problem still persists on Valleywood Drive. However, during this time, we started talking with Father Bashista and the church there, and he made us aware that the church is planning on several improvements. And part of these improvements, we came to a discussion that there could be a possibility of installing a raised pedestrian crosswalk near the church to tie into some pedestrian improvements at the church. I will leave that for Father Bashista to speak more about the church's ideas, but essentially what this would mean is instead of just having a possible speed table at the new location, proposed location, which is 12840 Valleywood Drive, we also could look at possibly putting in a raised pedestrian crosswalk near the church to tie in those pedestrian facilities. So essentially, what are we proposing or looking at, assuming traffic calming is still warranted on Valleywood Drive with the new speed study? On the left, I'm showing you the typical section of a speed table. Essentially, they are speed humps with a 10-foot flat section in the middle with 2 approach ramps on each side that are 6 feet wide, and the height of the speed table is about 4 inches. A raised pedestrian crosswalk, which is shown on the right, is essentially the same thing, but instead of having just the warning triangle diamonds, it also has the raised crosswalk, the transverse crosswalk markings, as well as slightly different signage. Essentially today, we want to try get your feedback on these ideas, and also we're going to give Father Bashista an opportunity to show you what the church is planning and also find out if this is something that the community is interested in us pursuing further with the church. With that, we'll pass it across to Father Bashista.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. Thank you, Supervisor Boddye. Very honored to be a part of this discussion today. I'm going to go ahead and try to pull up our, let's see, trying to share the content here. Okay. Go. Is it up? Can you all see it? Okay.
Sure. Yeah, we can see it.
As Richard mentioned, when we started, Richard was here in September, we started discussing various things, including the speed issues on Valleywood. I was concerned about how pedestrians on Valleywood approach our church property, and knowing that the crosswalk is on the opposite side of Valleywood, and many people will cross on the road. I think very few will go up to the stop sign up here and come and trace back. So when I mentioned to Richard about we are looking as a parish, we're very, very early stages, preliminary stages of looking at really beautifying our site. Right now we have quite a bit of asphalt for parking. We certainly need to maintain the number of parking is required, but our desire is to soften the parking lot by introducing some tree islands, some grassy areas, curb and gutter everywhere. Actually, this preliminary drawing doesn't show the extent of trees. We desire to have trees almost throughout the entire parking lot. We're going to introduce a connection between our church and our parish hall, a greater connection with a handicap ramp. But one thing that kind of caught our attention for this discussion was we're looking at introducing a walking, kind of running trail that would go around the interior. Of course, this is our property line here, but we're proposing an interior kind of path that would kind of be a soft, maybe gravel, not a hard path that goes around the entire interior perimeter of our property. And then maybe as we get to the front of the property, on our side of the property line, introduce a sidewalk that would come on our property. The reason this idea is for various reasons, not only for use of the parishioners, but our desire is for neighbors. We have a lot of neighbors. We're very pleased that neighbors walk our property, use it for exercise, walk their dogs, and we would, have benches along this walkway. We would have. We're even talking about those dog pole stands to facilitate, people walking their dogs. People could walk on it, run on it. But when Richard talked about the requirements for a crosswalk would have to unload on a walkway. And this is what I brought to his attention, that we would be introducing, or at least proposing, a walkway that perhaps a crosswalk could be introduced somewhere in this area that would then, we would extend this walkway down here so people could, come up to the church on our side of the property here, or even come on the footpath directly and enjoy this path around the interior wooded area of our site. So I think that's what we wanted to propose and bring to the discussion today, as far as St. Elizabeth NC, other than the fact that we're just desirous for the neighbors to be proud of us. We're part of the neighborhood, and we want to be engaged and helpful and a very welcoming parish community to all our neighbors, many of whom are parishioners, but of course, many that are not. So I guess with that, I will send it back to Supervisor Boddye.
Sure. Thank you for that, Father Brigista. We, of course, also have John Mills from the school division with us, as well as Officer Powell. Mr. Mills is obviously here to answer any concerns that folks may have in regards to the construction going on at Woodbridge High, which, as everyone who lives in this area knows, is just off to the north from this neighborhood. And of course, Officer Powell is there with us to answer any questions in regard to enforcement. We've obviously had some folks in this community who have mentioned to us that one of the previous ways in which traffic was calmed in this area is by having a very, robust enforcement of the speed laws and what have you. So as we continue this conversation, know that those two folks are here to answer your questions as well. That being said, we're going to go ahead and open it up to our question and answer portion. I see that we now have a few more folks on the line. We have about 8 or so call-in users, and we have some other folks who are through the chat. And we also have a few handful of folks who are on the YouTube. So without further ado, if you'd like to ask a question, go ahead and type into the chat. And if you're on the phone, we will get to you after we've gotten to all the chat questions. Okay, I'm checking both the YouTube and the WebEx chats right now. I'm not seeing any questions yet. Actually, let's see, we may have just gotten one. Oh, yep, here's a long one. Let me go ahead and read it for everyone's benefit here. My concern is the three-way intersection on Rivanna Court and Valleywood Drive. When making a left turn off of Rivanna Court, the view is obstructed with the bushes and trees. When cars are speeding down the road, it makes it very difficult to turn, and it's a safety concern with getting hit. when there is traffic at Old Bridge in the mornings, Valleywood Drive is the cut through that causes volume. Also, kids walk through to the high school, and it's dangerous in the mornings and in the afternoon crossing the street. A stop sign on both sides of Valleywood at the intersection of Ravenna Court would slow down drivers and give neighbors on Ravenna Court safely make the turn onto Valleywood. Stop sign is not an option. Then cutting down on the trees that obstruct the view to make the left turn view of Valleywood Drive should occur at the minimum and to ensure the safety of the residents. It looks like we have a couple of different moving components of that one. Some part of it is the obstruction of the view in terms of the trees, and there's also looking for requests for signage. Richard, I would imagine you'd be able to answer some of that.
Certainly. So firstly, multi-way stops are generally not used as traffic calming devices. And the reason for that is that people who tend to speed also tend to run stop signs. And as such, it actually creates potentially a more dangerous situation. So unfortunately, a multi-way stop at Ravenna Court is not an option. However, I've already taken a note here. We will go out either tomorrow or early next week and verify the line of sight issues. And if there's a line of sight issue with the trees, and if that is inside the state maintained right away, we'll arrange with VDOT to go ahead and get that trimmed back. Unfortunately, if it is in private property, we unfortunately cannot go into private property and clear vegetation. As much as safety engineers, we would probably want to like to do that. Sometimes it is something that we cannot do. With response to the issue of speeding around school openings and releases and arrivals, this is something that has been brought to our attention. We are aware of it, and that is something that was passed on to police for enforcement. But of course, during school times, their focus is obviously at the school. Perhaps, Officer Paul, would you like to add anything to that? Officer Paul, I think you're muted still.
Yes, sorry about that. What I was saying was that if they can get the exact time that this is happening, then we can get an officer there to enforce the issue. A lot of times we get, broad, range of time that, okay, this is what is happening, but we don't get a specific time. So if a specific time can be put out, then the citizen can call a non-emergency number 703-792-6500 and report it, and we'll get an officer there to address that issue.
Right. Appreciate that. Yeah, and obviously it part of that is, as they said, the reopening of the schools. So obviously, not knowing completely how the school reopening plan is going to go and what kind of shifts folks are going to be on. Obviously, folks may have seen this happen particularly at one time. It may shift a little bit when schools reopen. So please, as the officer said, reach out to the non-emergency number when you start to see those patterns, and the PD will be happy to help enforce that, because safety is our top priority. I missed the question that popped right in before Ms. Taylor's question, which was the longer one. Stephen Laterra has asked, where exactly would the crosswalk to the church be located? I think that's a question for Father Batista.
Yeah, this is and I just wanted to mention too, and maybe Richard, you can chime in. I think it's an excellent question about the Ravenna Court folks coming out, and I think that's one reason why we would desire some type of speed table or raised crosswalk around the Ravenna Court intersection, because that would definitely calm the traffic and speeding coming on this side of Valleywood. As far as where I think the Laterra property and our property actually line up, the edge of their property, I think there's some utility boxes at the corner of their property. My suggestion would be that it would go as far down to the corner of their property and our property, to be as far away from the Laterra's driveway.
Certainly, Father Batista. So the way it works with raised pedestrian crosswalks is we need to have code ADA compliant ramps. So what that means is we won't be going into anyone's driveways or anything like that, because VDOT will not allow that. VDOT hasn't seen this proposal yet, so we're kind of jumping the gun a little bit by bringing it to the community. But the nice advantage of this is, because we're talking about the church on the other side, we could potentially shift that up and down a little bit to tie in with the trail on the church. So this was one of the reasons why we wanted to bring this option to the community now, to find out if there were any concerns with it. I also see here that someone is saying the trees were trimmed last year. Unfortunately, vegetation grows very, very quickly, and it needs to be trimmed repetitively. One of the ways you can, if this is an issue, you can either go ahead and report that to me or the supervisor's office, and we'll arrange with VDOT to get that trimmed. Or alternatively, if you have issues like that, you can go directly to VDOT. If you go to the VDOT website, in the top corner, you'll see a little, in the banner, a little button that you can press called report a problem. And you can go ahead and type that in and ask them to get that trimmed out. Or alternatively, you can call them on 1-800-4ROAD. So that's 1-800-FORROAD.
Thank you for that. It looks like we have a couple questions here that look like they're linked to me. The Amatos are first here. 60 of the 77 residents approved the speed table. How many residents didn't like the original site to stop its installation? And Jay Harseg, did I understand Richard to say we're going to go through the entire speed bump process again? Note that the 9 owners surrounding the original proposed speed bump were opposed to this installation.
So unfortunately, there's a time lapse. So yes, we will have to go through the whole process again. The petition was for the specific location. So we have to go ahead and do that again. What happened was the initial petition we did receive did qualify, but then we had several residents call in and remove their names from the petition. So that dropped back down. And hence we're at this point now where we're trying to work out a plan which we can get all the buy-in for the community so that we can expedite this process and work through it with as much community support as possible to stop a repeat of the, of what happened with the speed table previously.
Sure. So if I could just put a pin in that and highlight it for a second. Obviously, we're here to once again hear from all of you on this issue. Obviously, this is still something that a lot of folks in this community are concerned about, the speeding, the safety issues. And so now we want to come together and bring folks to the table to see if folks can start to work out something that can allow us to put a speed table in a place to make things safer, or maybe two. But also in a place that folks can generally be happy with, that folks won't be opposed to. That said, we're going to go back to someone else who spoke earlier. If dual stop signs are not an option, can a single sign be added? Just FYI. Oh yeah, you already mentioned that part of the latter part about it, Richard. But it looks like they want to also talk about a single sign can be added to the Rivanna area.
Unfortunately, it will still have the same issue with potentially creating a safety concern. So stop signs essentially are only installed nowadays on the current standards based on volumes. So a stop sign would not be a solution. However, if we can proceed with the double speed table or the speed table and raised pedestrian crosswalk, I think that will go a long way to slowing down vehicles, because that the raised pedestrian crosswalk will actually be quite close to Rivanna Court. On that approach, so should hopefully help resolve some of the safety concerns you're talking about exiting Rivanna Court.
Sure, thank you for that, Richard. Next one is the Amatos once again for the officer. They called the PWC Traffic Safely Hotline 4 times between June 18th and July 8th to complain about the speeding vehicles, and they requested a call back. They have yet to receive a call back, so they just wanted to follow up as to what was going on and why they may not have received a call back yet.
I can check on that for them. If you can get some information from the person that asked the question, I can check on that. But what I'll say is, whenever they find something like that, the best way to do is just call the non-emergency number. You can get an officer there immediately, compared to calling the hotline when they may be off, and the next time they come back is when they probably return the call. But if it's an immediate issue that needs some immediate attention, you just call the non-emergency number, which is a 703-792-6500, and just address the concerns with the call takers, and they'll relay it to us, and we'll drive through there and take action. I have worked Lake Ridge for years, and I'll let my beat mates know about this as well. I haven't personally experienced that. I drive through there almost daily, through Cavalier on Valleywood, but I haven't noticed, speeders, but it won't hurt to still drive through there to see what their concerns are.
Sure. Thank you for that, officer. And yeah, we'll get you the Amato's contact information so you can follow up on the thing. But I think that we just gave us a pretty good nugget there, that if folks have an issue, please call the non-emergency number instead, because it sounds like there's faster response to that. I'm going to jump a little bit out of order with the remaining questions here. Jerry Zadnik has asked for us to put up the map back up that shows us the new proposed location, and mention the house number again. So Richard, I think that would be something you'd be able to do.
Certainly, just give me a moment. So the proposal is possibly to relocate the speed table to this location here, which is, if I'm not mistaken, 12844 or thereabouts. So that will be on the western side of Valleywood, near Cavalier Drive, between Ravenna, which is over here, and Cavalier Drive.
Hey, Richard, I'm not sure that the map is actually up. Just
okay. Let's see. Let's try this again.
There you go.
All right. Sorry about that. All right. So repeating that. The proposal got modified to looking at a speed table here near 18. I believe it's 44. I think that's 1844 here. So near Cavalier Drive, and here's Ravenna. And then the other one was to put a raised pedestrian crosswalk somewhere in this location near the church, which will basically be between midway between the existing multi-way stop and Ravenna Court. And I believe that number is 12810, directly opposite the church. But again, these are just preliminary ideas, and we can go ahead with that if there appears to be sufficient community support for these.
So thank you for that, Richard. I'm going to lump in, well, let me just go to this other one first. So Stephen Laterra agrees that we need to speed table crosswalks on Valleywood. Speeding occurs on both ends. One speed table will not resolve the issue. So it seems like we're all in agreement on that. And as Richard just highlighted, that's where those would be. The Amatos are saying they don't see how the speed table would be effective with it so close to the end of the street.
That is why the original location was to put it in the middle. Unfortunately, the reality of speed tables is they do have a limited range of effectiveness on each side of them, and that's something that we can only do limited mitigation. So that's why also the idea of potentially putting 2 in actually would probably be better than the original measure of putting the 1 in, because that would help on both ends. One of the things that you got to remember about speed tables is not only do they deter speeding and help mitigate against that, they also can help with cut-through traffic to some degree, because a lot of people would prefer not to drive over them. So as such, even though it may not necessarily have the desired traffic calming, speeding and calming effect at a given location, it can potentially help decrease cut-through traffic.
Right, and then the other thing to mention is, especially the one that's going to be down near the church, should this go through, is also going to be a crosswalk. And we would hope that signage indicating that people are going to be crossing the street there may also deter some speeding, because people will then be wary that they might be accidentally hitting pedestrians. Let me jump over to, all right, looks like the Amados have a couple more points. Who is going to be responsible for getting the petition signed? Is the HOA willing to sign off on the approval? And then, let's see, can the reasons for the opposition to the speed table be identified and addressed?
All right, so and we will accept a HOA resolution if it is done by the board of the HOA, because we are of the opinion that the HOA represents the community. We do, however, require them to have some kind of discussion within the community at either an HOA meeting or something like that to discuss it and give everyone in the community an opportunity to voice their support or opposition to any measure. Unfortunately, it would be someone from the community who would need to lead the petition. As the county, we cannot take on that responsibility, but we will work with it. Often they are these petitions can be divided between multiple members who do different reaches or stretches of the community, and that way it can relieve the burden from one member or one group. And then the issues associated with it, the key concern was the exact location of the speed table. I think in principle, my understanding from the comments I received from the people who opposed it was more the exact location of it, as opposed to, in principle, having a speed table. So this is why we've come up with this new plan to try address it, and hopefully this will be more acceptable to everyone in the community.
All right, then that's helpful. And it looks like a couple of folks are talking about enforcement, as we discussed earlier. Disagreeable with speed tables, prefer enforcement first, which also generates revenue rather than construction costs. It doesn't impact individual residents' properties. A significant amount of speeding is after Woodbridge High School. That's out in the afternoon. Consistent speed enforced by police might help the issue. By consistent, I mean 1 or 2 days a week. I have seen this used in Arlington with good results. So to sort of address those quickly, to jump back to you for a second, Richard, then we'll jump to the officer. If we were to move forward, what's the timeline like on
this? The timeline for installing a speed table will be relatively long. Part of the process is, of course, getting that petition. We will need to redo the speed study. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 situation, all speed studies have been suspended because traffic is not behaving typical. So at this point, we're not sure when we would be able to repeat that speed study. But with that being said, we would prioritize this one because it's a repeat on an already identified issue. And assuming that qualifies, we would need to re-verify that with VDOT, which shouldn't take too long, and then go ahead to get the community support documented. And then, of course, once we have that, we need to post it for 2 weeks and hold a public hearing, which takes about 2 months to advertise and hold. And then if the funding is dedicated, which I assume Supervisor Boddye is willing to do, we can then proceed with the install. So unfortunately, it is a bit of a long process, and this is one of the reasons why the additional $200 fine for speeding was imposed, and that should help the officers with enforcement to possibly help make that speeding ticket a little bit more painful for the offending speeder.
Yeah, officer, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? I think you might be muted. There you go.
Sorry, what I was saying was that, as long as we know the time with when these are happening, as time permits, we will go, address these complaints. A lot of times when we are in that big, cruiser and we sit there, we get the results that we want because they see that, and of course everybody will slow down and not, speed. So if the time is just of concern, because a lot of times we get complaints and people will say that, oh, just come here, sit all day. But, obviously we can't sit there all day, looking for that. When we have this specific targeted time, then we can address that.
Appreciate that. It looks like Ms. Taylor just gave us stuff that she indicates, and my staff is actually listening and taking notes on this, so we'll be able to refer to the police department as well. It looks like it's 7:15 to 7:30 a.m. and in the afternoon from 2:30 to 2:45 p.m., especially when school is in session. There are several children in the neighborhood, so she agrees. The speed tables, and if the bushes can be trimmed back, that would help. Thank you for your time. But yeah, the reason why I sort of asked for both Richard and the officer to speak on that is we agree that enforcement needs to be a first priority here. And since it's going to take, even if we move through with this, a couple of years to get this done, we can obviously put between the new fines in place and more enforcement and more consistent enforcement there to help alleviate some of the safety concerns. And hopefully, as things return more to normal and we reopen, but folks get used to the fact that there's going to be an officer there at these peak times, writing them tickets and whatnot. We'll hopefully be able to see a drawback in the number of speeding offenders. Let's see. In the meantime, maybe we could have increased consistent patrolling. Yep, absolutely. That's done. That is done up near Smoketown Road in Minnieville. Yeah, no, I drive that intersection quite often. I know that there's officers there consistently. But yeah, our office will definitely work with the PD. And as you folks, please, as you see those peak times, please refer them to our office and the PD, and we'll make sure that we get that on the radar of our officers.
Supervisor Boddye, if I could just make a comment. We would welcome Prince William County Police to even be parked at our entrance to the church, particularly down near Ravenna. That's usually where the speeding, when they come off of the stop sign, they begin to make the curve, they really start to speed. We welcome police, especially at these times, to park in our driveway to perhaps facilitate monitoring that. That might be less intrusive than a car parked on Ravenna, but I just add that. Police are always welcome on our property.
Appreciate that, Father. I'm sure the officer will take that into consideration, definitely. And we like to see partnerships between our faith community and our law enforcement. So that's very generous of you. Let's see. I think I'm still looking through everything. It looks like the HOA may have reached out to some of the folks involved and said that it was a county road and they would not be involved with passing a resolution. So obviously, if the HOA wants to stay hands off on this, that's their prerogative. We obviously don't need the HOA necessarily to move forward as long as the community is overwhelmingly behind this. But obviously, if the HOA does want to get involved at some point, we welcome their involvement as well. It looks like Jay Harriseg, and sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, has also offered their driveway to the police department as well. So it looks like the officers have some options here.
Richard, can you mention this other one? Why a painted crosswalk? Joe Shoes talks about and putting one by our main entrance, but you told me that's not possible because of the proximity to the stop sign. You see that comment?
Yeah, certainly, Father Bashista. So the issue with that is essentially vehicles are supposed to stop at a stop sign. So therefore, when a pedestrian is at that crosswalk, vehicles are theoretically supposed to stop and yield to pedestrians. As such, if it's within a certain number of feet of a stop-controlled intersection like that, even if a crosswalk is not marked at that location, it is considered a crosswalk based on the standards from the Federal Highway Authority and VDOT. So this is why looking at a crosswalk potentially towards the other side of the church property, if we have some pedestrian facilities to tie into at that location, would qualify, because it's now becoming far enough away from the multi-way stop to actually qualify. Plus, if we did it as a raised pedestrian crosswalk, it has the traffic calming mitigation characteristics, which are also desirable in this particular instance.
Right. And Mr. Shu has looks like he has put in into the YouTube chat the same thing. But basically, it looks like the crosswalk with lighting at the entrance near Valleywood would be very helpful to people walking to evening masses. And you just obviously spoke to the crosswalk in general. Is there any consideration of putting additional lighting there, Richard, since we are going to be putting a crosswalk there?
Currently, there are no plans, and we haven't had any requests for lighting. Unfortunately, our budget is very limited on the amount of lighting we do have, but that is something we can definitely look into, and that is perhaps something we could also work with the church based on their improvements. Is lighting, especially if there's a bit of a trail along there.
Yeah, we are going to be redoing all of our lighting. We're going to lower our lighting to our main parking lot if we think it's too high. And then on that corner, we're also going to be introducing replaced light poles there as well. Just to be clear, Richard, I think Joe is asking about the possibility of a crosswalk, not where we've been speaking about, but by our main entrance, which is closer to Oakwood. And I understand that VDOT, it's too close to the stop sign to put a crosswalk there, but there is a strong possibility of putting it at our secondary entrance because it's the further distance away from the stop sign. Is that correct?
Correct. Sorry if I wasn't clear on that. So the main primary entrance, which is I'm going to call it the Oakwood entrance, is too close to the multi-way stop to meet the standards. So the idea is we are looking at the secondary entrance, which is the Cardinal Drive side entrance, to get that additional distance to help with that. So yes, unfortunately, it is too close to that multi-way stop for a crosswalk.
And just a point for me, actually, on this point, would it be possible, at least, Richard, for if there were to be a painted crosswalk, for the material for the paint to be, that sort of increased reflexive paint that is high reflective to lights and things like that?
Certainly. So all the paint that is used on roads, VDOT roads, or that we use anyway, would be a thermoplastic paint with glass beads, and it's those glass beads that are reflective. So yes, all the crosswalks would be that high visibility. Similarly, the signs for crosswalks are actually a fluoro green is a new standard, which is a reflective green color too, which is only used for crosswalks. To highlight the fact that there's a crosswalk there. So yes, all that would be to the VDOT standard, which is the reflective surface.
Sure. I appreciate that, because obviously lighting is obviously a limited thing. At least having reflective surfaces around there would be helpful. Let's see. Looks like the mottos have thanked us for hosting this meeting, and they've said, can all participants and residents agree that we have a speeding problem and that speed table is one solution? We support the church's construction enhancement, especially the raised crosswalk. The speed table can be installed. Place it near our address. So it looks like the mottos are offering near their address, which I'm sure you have on file, Richard, on where they would be okay with us putting that. Obviously, we would need buy-in from the other folks directly adjacent to them, but that's thank you for that, Mr. and Mrs. Amato. At this point, it looks like we've gotten to all of the chat folks. So at this point, Jason, if you're still listening, let's open it up to the folks who have called in. Okay, it looks like we have 6 folks on the line, and Jason will be opening this to all our calling users all at once. Please bear with us, because if multiple people start talking, we'll have to sort of have folks sort of talk in order. Okay, all of our call-in folks are unmuted. If you don't have anything to say, please feel free to mute yourselves back up.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, this is Scott Ferguson. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir. Please go ahead, Mr. Ferguson.
Thank you. We live down closer to Cavalier on Valleywood, close to the school walkway that comes down to the community, which is great. But what we've discovered over the last school season is that many folks use that walkway to pick up their children at the end of the school day, and it gets to be quite a traffic jam here on Valleywood Drive. And many times they use our driveways and portions of our yard to turn around and stuff. So I just thought I'd bring it to your attention. I'm not sure if that's something the school wants to see when people are coming through to pick up their children, rather than coming down to our street. I don't know if it's better for them to pick them up at the school. I just point that out to you. You might not have known that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ferguson. That's a good point. We have our schools folks on the line for that. Obviously, we don't want folks using other people's driveways and yards as turnaround and pickup spots for the school. Our hope is that obviously as we move along and schools reopen, we'll be able to funnel folks to do the right thing when it comes to their children. Thank you for sharing that with us, though. Before I jump into,
I appreciate the meeting. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you joining us. Before I jump into the next call-in participant, Mr. Shu just wanted to clarify that he was talking about asking for painted markings across the parking lot, not Valleywood. So I think that's more of an issue for the church to sort of handle when they're doing their enhancements, I believe.
Yeah, Joe, I'd be happy to speak with you. Feel free to give me a call and I can get the clarity of what you're thinking about. We want to make it as safe for everybody walking to our property, but also people on the property itself. So I think with the raised tree islands, we are going to have some dedicated places for people to walk, and we will be introducing crosswalks within our parking lot because of that, because there are none now, and it's not a safe situation. So, but give me a call, Joe. We'll talk about it further.
Sounds good. Appreciate that, Father, and thank you, Joe, for that, Mr. Chu, for that comment. All right, so I'm going to open it back up to the folks on the phone. Anyone else who's on the phone who would like to address us with any questions, concerns, or comments, please feel free to speak up now.
Yes, hello. This is Tom Beck. We live on Valleywood between Ravenna and Cavalier, but we're opposed to speed bumps. I don't like speed bumps at all, and it's a problem for emergency vehicles when they're coming up the street. And we get a good number of fire engines that come up Valleywood. They have to slow down quite a bit for that. So that's my comment.
Well, thank you for registering that concern with us. Richard, I know we've talked in the past on speed tables versus speed bumps and sort of the safety there when it comes to vehicles. Would you like to speak to that for a second, by chance?
Certainly. So I'm just bringing up the slideshow again, showing you the profile of a speed table. So the speed tables we use have been reviewed and approved by Fire and Rescue. They're okay with them. They're not the short bumps that most people see. They have a design speed of 25 miles per hour. So any vehicle that theoretically is going over it at 25 miles an hour or less should have no issues or damage to the car or anything like that. And this is the reason why we use a speed table. So if you look at the profile, you basically they're about 4 inches high, 3 to 4 inches high, and basically the first 6 feet is a slope going up to a plateau. Then there's a 10-foot table across it, and a 6-foot decrease. And what this does is that stops that bump that you get on speed humps and speed bumps, and that is why that is the approved device that we use with Fire and Rescue. Of course, we welcome all your opinions. Not everybody wants everything, and unfortunately, we may not be able to make everyone happy with this situation, but we will give everyone plenty of opportunity to express themselves and either support or go against it. Feel free to forward your comments to either me or the supervisor's office, and we will put them on file when this comes to consideration at the board meeting, that if should we get there to finally approve or disapprove the installation.
Right, and since that was a call-in user, if you can give us your email address or some other way to contact you, we're more than happy to send you sort of the schematics of that speed table to help illustrate how it is sort of a more easy grade, so it's not as much of an issue for fire and rescue. And Kate Herzeg just jumped back into the chat. To clarify, is another petition required for any of this to move forward, or do you plan to move forward without the approval of the neighborhood? Richard, I believe we need to go through the petitioning process again. Right?
So the process that we'll be doing moving forward is, the first thing that we will need to do is we'll need to conduct another speed study. So this will probably be only once COVID situation has returned to normal, and so it will probably be the last quarter of this year or the first quarter of next year. Unfortunately, I have no control over that situation. We will also again need to document a speeding problem. If people have any concerns about the exact location of where we do that speed study, please reach out to me or the supervisor's office and suggest locations, and we will try to accommodate that as much as we can. Assuming it qualifies and there's still a speeding issue, we will then have to verify that with VDOT, because they are ultimately the authority that maintains and operates the road. That shouldn't be an issue since they've already approved a speed table in the past. And then we will have to go through the entire community support and petition process again. So yes, we will not be doing anything without community support. The policy that we have requires this, and this is one of the reasons why we are having this meeting today, to find out what the sentiment is, to make sure everyone is involved, that they all have a chance to comment, and also to have you all involved in the process so that we don't go ahead with something that doesn't go anywhere.
Thank you for that, Richard. Just wanted to jump back to the YouTube folks for a second. Mr. Shu says, thank you, Father Bashista. He will call you. And then we have a new commenter in the YouTube, Miss Adams. Hello, very curious if a speed table may be placed on Valleywood near Cavalier at the sidewalk that goes up towards the schools. We see speeding there often there. I think, Richard, that would be for you and for us to bring back up the map vis-a-vis where that is.
Sorry, so this was speeding on Cavalier?
Yes. No, speeding on Valleywood near Cavalier.
Well, this is one of the reasons why one of the locations for the speed table will be there. Unfortunately, we have to look at the entire road as a holistic element. We can't put speed tables every single location. So yeah, hopefully this will help address some of that. And again, like I say, speed tables can deter some of that cut through traffic and make other routes viable when they currently may not be.
Right. And our hope is if we put in these two, should this go forward, it'll cut back on people going through there anyway. So hopefully it'll reduce speeding holistically across the entire road. That said, Mr. and Mrs. Amato just wanted to chime back in, saying that they also spoke to the folks over at OWL Firehouse when they attended their neighborhood get-together they hosted last September. They said that without a doubt, a speed table does not inhibit them to a resident in a timely manner. So yeah, we understand that folks are concerned about the potential damage that speed bumps and things do to cars and what have you, but it seems like our fire and rescue folks are pretty much behind this. Let's see, that's it for the chats right now. Let's go back to folks on the line. If anyone that's a call-in user would like to speak up, you have the floor.
Yeah, can we get a telephone number so we can call the district supervisor's office?
Sure, so I can handle that. Give me 1 second. Right now, our office is still in virtual mode since we are still half teleworking. You can reach my office at 571-492-4295. Now again, that's 571-492-4259. And for the folks on the chats, I will drop that into the chats as well. Okay, thank you for your question. We always want to hear from folks, whereas it's regarding this or whatever else you may need. We are here to serve you, so we're more than happy to share our contact information. And for folks that want to know all the rest of our contact information, you can always go to occoquandistrict.net. That has all of our phone numbers as well as our email addresses, as we want to be as transparent as accountable to you as possible. Let's see. Jim Hiritz, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Agree, there is a speeding problem, but a speed table is not the best solution for all issues discussed. Stop traffic, tax properties, crosswalk by church, though, and address both speed and pedestrian safety. Okay, thank you for that comment. We will definitely collect that. And I think everyone's at least excited about the opportunity to help Father Batista with getting that crosswalk and getting his enhancements in place. So let's see, anyone else in the chat or on the line that would like to express themselves or ask any questions? Okay. With that said, we will be, was that someone on the line? Okay, no. So Jason is going to go ahead and close the lines. We will now shift over to Mr. Mills, who will talk about the auxiliary gym that's under construction at Woodbridge High School. Mr. Mills, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Superintendent or Supervisor Boddye. So many of you may have noticed some construction outside of Woodbridge. So I will just speak a little bit to what's going on and what we're doing at Woodbridge Senior High School. As you can see, as you drive down in front of Woodbridge High, there's an addition going into the front of the school. That addition is not to increase any student capacity. That is 2 auxiliary gyms that will be placed in front of the main gym. It's more of an equity thing. It's what Dr. Waltz of our superintendent is what he asked for and what the school board requested construction to place there. So we have about an 18,000 square foot addition going on. That will include 2 auxiliary gyms. That will include bathrooms. There is a small portion of a second floor over there. If many of you have been in there, that there is an elevator that will make it accessible, and there is some storage. The one thing that you may not notice is there's actually 2 construction projects there. There's one towards the back near the new football field that we have put in. That's a new concessions building. That concessions building has been there for some time, as many of you know, and it's very inadequate in terms of facilities, toilet facilities. So we are replacing that this summer with a new 4,500 square foot concessions building. We demoed that old building and we put this new building right where the existing concession buildings is. So in doing that, we've got new toilet rooms there. We have 50 or 60 toilets that will go inside of that building with the concessions area. There's also additional storage. There's a family bathroom and a new ticket booth. It also gave us the opportunity to increase accessibility to the field. So part of the project and part of the scope of the project is as we build, we've got a natural walkway that will meet ADA standards that will get those down to the field by a very low sloped ramp with some landing spots, enhanced stairs, and we're also putting additional accessible parking spaces down at the field. So that's about what's going on over there. Again, both of these additions are not to increase any student capacity. They're more of an equity addition to bring them up to our current standards for high schools.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mills. And yeah, I know that our school board member, my counterpart on the school board, Mrs. Jessie, has been trying to address some of these equity issues for quite some time. So it's exciting to see that happen because, you know, Woodbridge High is one of the oldest high schools in not only the county, but the region. It's good to finally get some work done and renovating and updating that high school. And I love the opportunity to make our fields more accessible because the Vikings are probably one of the best high school football teams we have in the area. So we want to get as many people out to see them as possible. And I'm not just saying that because they are obviously an Occoquan District High School. But thank you for that, Mr. Mills. If anyone would like to ask Mr. Mills any questions about what he just addressed, whether it's the auxiliary gem addition or it's the improvements to accessibility or the new concession stand, please feel free to ask us in the chat. And since I would imagine it's going to be a little bit more limited in scope, Jason, go ahead and open up the phone lines as well so we can hear from folks.
Supervisor Boddye, while we're waiting, I
Sure.
will mention that we are expected to complete these both late fall of this year. So you should see, yeah, you should see us wrapping up September, October, and getting out of there.
Sure. So Mr. Shu just asked exactly what you just answered. So we're going to see both those projects done by late fall of 2020 of this year.
Yes, sir.
Good to know. Thank you for that, and thank you for your timeliness with that. I know that you guys started that a few months back. I'm sure that COVID and the schools closing earlier may have helped you guys speed up that process a little bit, but we're proud and we appreciate your guys' diligence to that.
Thank you.
Let's see. I'm just looking to see if there's any folks in the chats. You know, I appreciate that. Thank you for the thanks. You know, we appreciate you all participating. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything else. It's about 7:36 now. All right. I think that if all minds and consciousnesses are clear, does any of one of our panelists, whether it's Richard, Father Bashista, Mr. Mills, or Officer Apollo, did you guys have anything else that you wanted to share for closing remarks before we wrap this up?
I'll just say I thank everybody for the opportunity. We're very proud of this neighborhood and Supervisor Boddye, your leadership here, and Richard. We really appreciate all the help, and we're so open to, you know, building consensus and an integral part of the neighborhood, and for us to really contribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Supervisor Boddye. Father Bashista, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for community coming out this evening and coming online and expressing your opinions. Please, if you have any thoughts, any ideas, any concerns, either on Valleywood or any other roads, please reach out to us. We're committed to doing what we can to help resolve these issues. Again, my number for those people who are on the telephone is 703-792-8002. So that's 703-792-8002. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any transportation traffic related issues, or the supervisor's office, or if you don't have that number, reach out to anyone in the county and they'll be able to point you towards me. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Richard. And Mr. Weinman has been an asset to us ever since we took office. He's been doing a lot of good work in our county, especially in our district. So he is a very good resource, all things transportation. We are definitely blessed to have him as part of the team. Thank you for that, Richard. Officer Paul, anything you would like to share with us before we wrap it up?
Yes, thank you, sir, Supervisor Boddye, and the panel and the members of the community that joined us. Like I said, any enforcement actions that we can assist with, don't hesitate to call our non-emergency number, which is 703-792-6500, and we'll assist in any way that we can. Thank you.
Appreciate that. And I know that the motto had said recently that they had called the non-emergency number and they directed them to the hotline. So we'll obviously work through that, make sure that we get our channels crossed.
I'll get them connected to them.
Appreciate that. Thank you, officer. Mr. Mills, anything that you wanted to share before the end here?
I will tag on to something that Father Bashista said earlier on, and that was being good neighbors. Of course, Franklin County Public Schools wants to be good neighbors, and we want to be we want to kind of integrate into the fabric of the community and not kind of stand out. So if you start to see things, I know that the actions of high school students sometimes can be controlled as they leave the parking lot, but we do have a fantastic risk management force that works with the police departments. So it's something that we can work with. We do have we do get a fair number of comments about if you get into a stacking issue of parents dropping off or picking up, they will find ways to drop off their kids in other areas, crossing driveways, crossing yards. We have worked with others in the past, and our risk management group has done that as well. So please call us, and we'll be happy to work through some of those issues as well.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mills. And yeah, obviously we're all here to serve both on our end and the school division. We like to have a good partnership with the school division because we know that we're rowing the same boat of serving all of you, our constituents. I will sort of wrap it up here by thanking all of our panelists here, Mr. Weinman, Father Bashista, Mr. Mills, and Officer Powell. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This has been a really great town hall. Thank you to all of our callers on the line, as well as all of our folks participating through the chats and watching on both YouTube and WebEx. Our office is obviously here to serve, and we want this to be a continuing conversation when we're at first, more than anything else, listening to you, the public, our constituents, our residents who are obviously being affected by these issues and why we're here to begin with. So please feel free to reach out to my office. My email address is kboddye, that's K as in Kenny, BODDYE at pwcgov.org. And we also dropped the phone line to our office already. Whether it's on this Valleywood issue, whether it's the schools, whether it's whatever you may be needing out in the community, we are here to serve you. So please don't hesitate to reach out to my office. That said, let's keep this conversation going. We want to build consensus, as was said by many of the other speakers. We want this to be a community-driven conversation, a community-driven solution to speeding and to some of the other issues. And we obviously want to do right by Father Bashista too. So, we appreciate his partnership in this and his leadership in offering his house of worship as a pillar of our community. That being said, thank you so much, everyone. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. And again, hope everyone during these trying times are going to stay safe, stay healthy, and we are here to serve. Good night, everyone.
Good night.